Hey guys, and welcome back. Today, continuing the LLC mastery, we're going to talk about my literal favorite subject, money, capitalizing and financing your LLC. So some of the things that we're going to cover today are initial capital requirements, different sources and the way to bring financing to the table for your business, understanding the good, the bad, and the ugly of credit considerations, what it can look like for investment and crowdfunding options, as well as when you're managing capital, you're managing investors and distributions, how you can make sure that you're doing it safely, both for yourself, as well as any partners that you bring into your business. To start with, we're going to talk about an initial capital contribution. What do those requirements actually look like? And let's start with determining how much capital you'll need. It's a really, really important thing to start out with. And let's make it real simple. Every business has its own capital requirements. And what's going to define it is, frankly, your business plan, as well as some financial analysis of what makes sense for you and what do you need to actually be successful. And at the end of the day, what all this is about, maximizing profit. Now, when you're working on your business plan, we've already covered thinking about the competition, what other people are doing. Really, one of the biggest things that you always have to think about is the barrier of entry. Not from a legal and regulatory standpoint, but a barrier of entry from a financial standpoint. How much money do you actually need to have to get started? And I don't want you to think about it like you've been to the car dealership and the car sales guy says, well, what can you afford every month? That's not the right approach. The correct approach to your initial capital requirements is, what is the purchase price of the entire car? Because we talk about a capital stack where part of it may be from financing from a bank or private lender. Some of it may come from third-party and outside investors, or from your operating partners and yourself directly as well. So you don't need to pay attention to what's your monthly payment. It's really all about looking at your business plan. What's the total amount of capital that you'll need, not just to get started? And this is where the financial analysis gets to be very important. How long and what has to happen before you're past the break-even point? What I mean by a break-even point is the same with all businesses. You're losing money when you get started. Every business loses money when it starts. But there's a certain point where the revenues meet the expenses, and that's your break-even. You're not profitable yet, but if you have one more dollar coming in, all of a sudden you are profitable. This break-even analysis is one of the most important things for you to do when figuring out both your initial capital requirements, your business plan in general, and ultimately how you're going to bring the money in to make sure that you have a profitable business moving forward. Now, there are cost considerations when you're developing your plan, and let's just kind of touch on a few, because I got to be honest with you. I've been my own entrepreneur, having my own business, my own law firms, etc., for over 20 years now. And people hiring employees, hiring contractors, hiring professionals actually ends up being one of the most expensive components of any business. The thing is about employees, they're what we call a variable cost. If you're not doing well, guess what? The first thing you cut is variable costs. Now, I say that kind of in jest when we're talking about employees, but if a business isn't going well, people get fired. That's where having this initial capital requirements and your break-even point analysis is unbelievably important, because the second you start running out of money, people start losing their job. And nobody ever wants that to happen. On the other side, there's also fixed expenses. such as, if you're doing a retail store, entering into a lease. That expense of the lease is going to happen each and every month, whether you're open for business, closed for business, doing well or not. If you get a bank loan, generally, most bank loans have some level of fixed expense, meaning you got a monthly payment. Sometimes, like a credit card, it may be a variable payment where you have an interest rate based on the amount of debt on it. So it can be variable, it can be fixed, but no matter what, this is really important to know, your fixed monthly expenses are always going to be there, whether or not you're successful or not, or in business, or your business is failing. So again, we're coming back to that financial analysis and the cost factors to take into account of what's a variable expense, what's a fixed expense, and then based on your break-even analysis, how much initial capital do you need to have a successful business? Now, once you've figured out, here's the total amount of money that you're going to need to become profitable. Not just to get off the starting line of you're finally opening up your shop. You open your shop and you're losing money. How much more money do you need to bring in until you're actually profitable? And let's talk about some of the different ways for you to fund your business. And the number one, almost everybody does to some extent, self-funding. You can go into your own piggy bank, grab some funds, open up the bank account underneath your LLC, and now you are self-funding. And I kind of throw in with self-funding your operating partners, the people that are running the business with you and are also owners. If they're bringing capital to the table, that's also self-funding. Another component that is huge, friends and family. When it comes to investors who know, likes, and trusts you is so unbelievably important. And who knows, likes, and trusts you is your friends and family. Now, dealing with investments and securities, it's a huge area that I focus on. And so I kind of just want to let you know there's a lot of risk and a lot of issues in asking your friends and family for money. You need to make sure that you're doing everything properly every step along the way. We call it a securities investment. What securities means is you're just bringing in passive investors to, fund your business. There's not an exemption that says, well, as long as these investors are your friends and family, you don't have all these extra securities regulations or other requirements that you have to pay attention to. So this is where I need to just yell and scream from the top of a mountaintop. Make sure you're working with a competent, experienced, and knowledgeable attorney to make sure that everything that you're doing in terms of asking your friends and family for money is legal, the right disclosure and information is actually provided to them, and there's generally some state or SEC filings that is required to take place. And another area that's really important to consider is whether or not you can even receive a business loan. And when I say a business loan, I'm talking about an SBA loan or a commercial bank loan. They always have some personal guarantee requirements. It just happens when we're talking about starting up a business. And to be able to provide a personal guarantee, you have to have a balance sheet, a net worth. Be credit worthy for that bank to even extend to you those funds. So I would actually say that business loans, it can be some of the most important if you're trying to open something that's in the millions of dollars range. But at the same time, if you're trying to start a small business or a way that, you're trying to start it for 100 or 200,000, you're going to be staying away from the business loans to get your business running. And once you are to the point that, hey, I'm looking for $1 million or $500,000, making sure that you personally have taken the time to clean up your credit reports, taking care of any past due amounts that could be due, both from the business and for you personally. is really important to look credit worthy from a bank to give you that loan. Another area, and this one actually will come up more often than you could even imagine, are credit cards. Whether or not it's a personal credit card or a business credit card. And of course, a business credit card is really ideal, but at the end of the day, with all credit cards, there's a personal guarantor. You're signing on that application that you yourself are going to be responsible for whatever the payments are, whether or not it's in the name of the business or in your name personally. And I can tell you, and this happens all the time, and it's actually fine in the startup world, if you have a personal credit card, my biggest suggestion to you is to have a separate credit card for business-related transactions for your LLC, because going through your credit card statement and trying to say, well, this expense was personal, that expense was business, this expense was personal, is almost impossible to do on an ongoing basis. So either having a business credit card that's in the name of your LLC or a personal credit card that you do nothing except for business-related expenses is really important. Now, I've brought this up in the past, piercing the corporate veil. Piercing the corporate veil, one of the biggest issues is having a credit card that you have personal expenses and business expenses all in the same place, all under the LLC. Your business credit card, if it is in fact a business credit card, should never, ever, ever have personal expenses on that credit card. Otherwise, you're actually exposing yourself to the risk of piercing the corporate veil. What I mean by this is a court can say, you know what, this really isn't a separately organized, separately operated business. It is your alter ego. And if the court says that, they can hold you personally responsible for what happened in the LLC, and that's a horrible thing to have. Another option, VCs, what's referred to as venture capital. Now, if you're on the cutting edge of technology, you're working on a unique and novel type of business. We're not talking about you're a real estate developer, or you're opening up a nail salon, or you're doing a retail shop. If you're working on some software, some technology, some pharmaceuticals, along those lines, there are venture capital firms out there that will invest large amounts with you. My only big warning is don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And the VCs, is what we refer to them, will ask for your firstborn kid in terms of the terms required for them to fund your business. Great source of funding that can take care of a majority of your capital stack, your capital contribution needs. Just know that there's going to be a lot of strings attached to that. And then my absolute favorite, crowdfunding. My business is Crowdfunding Lawyers. We do a ton of these. And this is actually setting up a crowdfunding, a investment opportunity that allows you to reach out to the masses. Online, seminars, email blasts, social media, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Reach out everywhere and ask for investments. I have other trainings that go kind of deep down into what the different options and vehicles and regulations are for crowdfunding. So I'm not going to go too deep here, but I want to bring up, you have friends and family on one side that you're not out there advertising. You already know them. You have a prior relationship with them. Versus crowdfunding, where you're going to the crowd and advertising to look for new potential investors to make your business funded a reality. And then personally, I'm going to bring up one more strategy that I hands down absolutely love, and that's using a convertible promissory note. Private lenders that may want to be investors. You can go and seek a private lender to borrow the money to get the business funded. And I like using this in conjunction with crowdfunding or some friends and family capital raises that, ultimately you're going to need a lot of money, whatever your business plan dictates. The convertible promissory notes is a great way to get started with getting some initial capital in the door. And then with this, they're initially private lenders, but you design it where there's an opportunity for those lenders to convert and to change what they're doing from a debt, from a promissory note to equity or ownership within your company. Now, I have an entire course also on convertible notes. I recommend if this is a vehicle that makes sense to you, check it out entirely as well. We provide all the templates and everything else you need for you to be successful with getting your LLC, getting your business up off the ground and moving forward.